which also helps to incentivize good governance by the community because they're incentivized to not only increase the value of the token, but they want to increase volume and liquidity and all of those things because that drives the flywheel around again, right?
Mhm.
So the more we can align the team's incentives with the community's incentives, with the incentives of the broader market, that we also want to provide the best trading experience. And that means deeper liquidity and lower fees. So the more we can align those things, the more it flywheels together and produces more and more yield as it goes. The other portion of that is that not every protocol produces fees during the same sort of environment, right? During more stable environments, a lending protocol is great, right? Because you're pretty secure in your collateral. You're not too worried about these really volatile swings getting you liquidated or something like that. And so you tend to borrow against that collateral more in a stable environment or in an upward environment. That produces fees that are being paid as interest, which feeds the flywheel. During more volatile times, you get a lot of volume through things like a DEX because there's
Mhm.
constant arbitrage with the centralized exchanges, with other pools, and that produces more fees during volatile times when you might be lacking fees in something like a lending protocol. And so it all supports itself and supports each other to create more of a stable ecosystem that's predictable, which is part of the APY cloud is having a predictable band between 5 and 35% APY that we're targeting. If it drops below that, it has reserves it can dip into if needed. If it goes
Mhm.
above that, it starts to fill the reserve. And if it ever
Mhm.
reaches the point where it's consistently above 35%, it'll start to produce extra yield, dipping into the reserve to pay out extra. So we're trying to create a realistic bound of what yield should look like because real yields can't be, 40, 50% consistently. You see
Yeah.
yields like that on new products that are low liquidity because it's just a mathematical imbalance between what's receiving a reward and the value of the reward. And so you see these 1,000% APY numbers and they exist for maybe 5 minutes before it gets filled and then they're, down to something more reasonable. But we wanted to create a system that would be reasonable over time and kind of help support itself during leaner times by putting some away extra.